Ms. Cronus, you have 5 minutes.
Given that I was a bit too generous to the previous Liberal speaker.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Chair. And my questions are going to be for Ms. Giles as well. Most Canadians are familiar at this point with foreign interference in our elections. And I sit on the Human Rights Subcommittee of Foreign Affairs, and we've been studying transnational repression where, as you know, foreign governments target people often from their own diaspora communities, but sometimes Canadians who support those diaspora communities and others. Online and in other places, and you were talking about the additional threats that we are facing in terms of volume, nature, velocity, and you also talked a lot about the technical implications. And I want to apply that to our discussions about Bill C-22. Issues around end-to-end encryption have come to this committee in relation to the bill. And I'd like to get your thoughts. Is it fair to say that Canadians who are the subjects of transnational repression in Canada are very dependent on communications mechanisms that have strong end-to-end encryption?
Mr. Chair, I think that's a really important question. I think that when it comes to religious, cultural, and ethnic communities that are in Canada that have strong roots in other countries around the world, that a number of means of communication are used. The reality is that so many of the publicly available email systems, messaging systems that are used do have encryption built into them. And so I think from there it's fair to assume that most Canadians and people in Canada do rely upon different forms of communication which may or may not have encryption.
And is it fair to say that those who are being targeted by foreign regimes would face, in some cases, serious personal danger if some of the secure communications mechanisms that they depend on are compromised?
I think, Mr. Chair, I think that when it comes to the threats that individuals are facing in Canada, it can come through a variety of mechanisms. I think that when it comes to foreign interference being perpetrated in Canada, if there are foreign states that are trying to interfere in a deceptive or covert way with the communications of Canadians and to use that information to bring them harm, that is certainly something that would be a priority for CSIS to examine and to ensure that we're able to work with our domestic partners to combat it.
Well, and as we know, these are not hypothetical threats. There are people, there have literally been murders in the last year that have been linked to this kind of foreign interference and transnational repression. So what I'm wondering is whether the government's conducted any threat assessments specifically examining how lawful access capability requirements could affect communities that are vulnerable to transnational repression and those who CSIS is helping in this regard.
Mr. Chair, I think that's, again, a really excellent observation and an excellent question. What we have done in our examination of the work on Bill C-22 is tried to understand where it is that there are gaps in our lawful access system and where plugging those gaps and bringing our lawful access framework up to the standards of our allies, including European allies and Five Eyes allies, where that would allow us to better protect Canadians, including from transnational repression. And we believe that having a lawful access regime will better enable us to protect victims of foreign interference and transnational repression in Canada, as well as a number of other threats.
But sometimes when we're trying to help people, we inadvertently have unintended consequences of that. And so I'm asking about the other implications of it. The idea, the possibility, whether or not the assessments included the possibility that weakened encryption standards, that the requirement to have backdoors that could be exploited by foreign actors looking to do Canadians harm.
So, Mr. Chair, I can be very clear that there is no expectation and no requirement, certainly, for backdoors to be put in place through Bill C-22. There is not to be any systemic vulnerabilities that are introduced as part of Part T2 of Bill C-22. And if service providers are concerned about those systemic vulnerabilities, they are able to avail themselves of a number of various steps, including up to judicial review, to challenge that.
With all due respect, judicial review is too late when somebody's come up to your doorstep and put a bullet through your front door. The issue that I'm asking about is we've had a number of experts at this committee who have come and have made it clear that despite the intentions of this bill, there is the reality that that encryption could be weakened, and the minister himself has indicated that he is willing to accept amendments on this to get it right. I'm asking you, from a safety and security perspective, is it important that we get it right?
Mr. Chair, from CSIS's perspective, it's always important that the legislation that's put in place is there to protect Canadians. The parliamentary process always involves quite a bit of back and forth as Parliament works in the best interest of Canadians to ensure that we have the best possible legislation. I think the minister has expressed his interest in amendments, and we'll certainly support that.
The question I'm asking you is not about whether or not you believe we've struck the right balance. The question is if we get this wrong, in the context of the velocity, the volume, and the nature, and the changing technology that's out there, is it important to get this right to make sure that people's lives are not at risk?
Mr. Chair, it's always important to ensure that we get the legislation right, and having a proper lawful access regime in place will ensure that we can better protect Canadians.
Thank you very much for this.